Hey everyone, this is Pete. Welcome to Atari A to Z Flashback, an exploration of the games in Atari Flashback Classics for Nintendo Switch. Today's game is Atari Baseball from the arcades. Now, I must confess, I don't know a great deal about the sport of baseball. I don't play a lot of sports games, but I'm willing to give this a chance just for the sake of, well, history, I guess. This is quite an interesting game in a number of ways, in that it makes use of a double-sided screen, so it's obviously intended to be played in sort of cocktail format on a tabletop. So if you look at the top of the screen, you can see there's a lot of text and stuff that's upside down. That's intended for the player who's in the fielding position to begin with, and the information down at the bottom is for the player in the batting position. And the actual graphics will invert when you change ends, as you can see here in the demo mode. Let's give it a go. I'm not going to promise any sort of great performance here because I don't really know how to play this effectively, but there's not a great deal of sort of helpful documentation on it, but we'll try and figure things out as we go. So, let's begin. So, in a single-player game like this, you begin in the batting position. And you can press the button to cycle through those 4 different batter styles up in the top left corner. So we start with just a right swing. You wait for the pitcher to throw the ball, and then you try and press the button again to actually hit the ball. And your timing of that will determine whether you actually hit the ball, which direction it's going to go, and so on. And that's about it for batting, basically. It's all to do with timing, which I haven't mastered, as you can see. So bat too late and you will always hit it off to the side. Bat too early and you'll just miss. Well, that went badly. Okay, so now we're in the fielding position after I've embarrassed myself batting. The way this works, again, is a very similar sort of way. You cycle through the 4 different ways you can pitch up at the top, and then wait for the pitcher to actually pitch the ball, and then respond accordingly. So your joystick can control these 3 outfielders here, who can hopefully catch the ball. And then there's an interesting mechanic once you actually do get hold of the ball. If you do, and you throw the ball, you actually control it directly. So you press the button to release the ball from the person who's currently holding it, and then you have to steer it manually to its destination. Which is actually not an altogether unusual thing in Atari games from this period, in the sort of late 70s period. As you'll see when we get onto the game Pool Shark, I think it's called later on. Yeah, that is a pool game where rather than incorporating some sort of physics engine based on where you hit the ball and so on, you actually just control the ball directly and steer it to where it's going. Which is an interesting approach. And it actually sort of works as well, because it sort of means that you're not relying on the computer needing to know the context of your button press, on the computer needing to assume how you what you mean when you press the button. I mean, does it mean pass it to a particular person? Does it mean throw it to the pitcher? Obviously, modern baseball games have a lot more in the way of complex controls to figure this sort of thing out, but yeah, there we go. So as you can see, I'm not doing too well at this because I haven't really got a grasp on the mechanics yet. If you're playing 2-player, you may well wonder how those sort of button presses can work, and with you sort of keeping your moves a secret from the other player. And the answer is that if you're playing multiplayer, you can, instead of cycling through the buttons there, you can just press one of the shoulder buttons to pick one of those options directly. And so if you're going to play this 2-player, I would recommend you do it that way, because otherwise it'll be pretty obvious what you're doing. Now this is going to be a catastrophic loss for my team, as you can see. We're on 0-7. The structure of this game, the way it works, you play a single inning per coin that you put in. So I'm not entirely sure how this works with the free play implementation that is in this Flashback Classics collection, but yeah, that's how it goes. So obviously in terms of a sports simulation, it's got the very basic structure of baseball in here. It's not trying to do anything too complicated, but it has got some interesting mechanics in there. Like it's got the different types of shot and the necessity to respond to those in different types of ways. As I say, I'm not especially well up on baseball myself, so I'm not an expert in this by any means. But I can see how this would be of interest to those who know the sport a bit better, who know what those various moves, what a good context for them would be, and what a good response to them would be. So I'm assuming that maybe the batter and pitcher controls might well correspond to one another. So like if you do a change up, for example, would it make sense to use a left swing at that point? And there we go, that's the end of the game. So like I say, that was probably not the best demonstration of how it works, but hopefully you can get an idea of the basic mechanics of that anyway, and decide for yourself, if you know baseball a bit better than I do, whether that looks like a good adaptation that you might want to fiddle around with. As I say, as an early arcade game, it's obviously very, very simplified from what you might expect from a baseball simulation these days. But there's some interesting mechanics in there that make it quite fun to play. Probably a lot more fun with 2 people than it is with just playing against the computer, but I'm by myself at the minute, so needs must and all that. So, that was Atari Baseball for the arcades. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. New episodes of Atari A to Z are on Tuesdays and Atari ST A to Z on Thursdays. Check out atariatoz.wordpress.com for a full archive. Do please also check out my other projects moegamer.net, where I explore Japanese and Japanese-inspired games from yesterday and today, and videopackgames.wordpress.com, which aims to catalogue the small but well-formed library of the Philips G7000 Videopack computer, also known as the Magnavox Odyssey 2. You can also support my work on Patreon or buy me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.